Assalamualaikum, it's me Uruma Hassan, the part of media alumni at SST Public School, Rashtabad, and your today's host. I'm honored to have chance and conduct an interview from our principal, Air Commander retired Nayyar Qayum Khwaja sir. Sir, good morning and Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Sir, thank you for your 11 years of services and leadership at SST. And sir, we are truly grateful for your services and leadership at SST. So sir, kindly would you like to tell us that what will you miss the most about being principal? Would you like to share your experiences and your era as being principal at SST College, School, Public School, Rashtabad?
I guess that's the outset. What I'll miss is all these kids and the team that I had over here. We had some great times, some trying times, and overall, I guess it was time worth looking back at and remembering it. And having seen almost, I started off with the 5th entry, and today when I leave, it is with the 21st entry. So out of all the 21 entries that have been to school, except for 4 entries, rest everybody's gone through the school while I was there. So a lot of association with a couple of thousand boys, and an association which one needs to remember for times to come.
Okay, sir. So we are moving to our next question. So, sir, what are some of the most memorable moments or achievements during your time period as principal that you will always cherish in your future time?
I guess the most memorable, I would say, rewarding activity is that when you select a new set of boys for the school, and because they come from all stratas of society, there's a whole lot of teaching and learning that goes on in the basics. We're not talking about education right now. We are talking grooming of the young man. There are boys who never worn a trouser before. They've been shalwar kurta. There are boys who never worn those Oxford shoes in their feet and never worn a necktie. And then when you get around them, start teaching them those things, small little things that you get down into. And then when you see these guys learn the things and doing themselves, I guess there's a reasonable degree of sense of achievement in that also, that you have actually molded these kids into a different format altogether.
So,
And then
sir,
comes the education part.
okay. So, sir, what is the difference between schooling and education according to you?
I guess schooling is run of the mill kind of thing that a boy joins pre-schooling kind of situation, then does his metric FSC and goes out, he's done his schooling, he's got a certificate, maybe a couple of certificates, one for metric, one for FSC, and that's about it. But if you talk of education, then the way it is said and accepted that education is not just about cramming up of figures and definitions. Education is training your mind how to think,
Exactly.
how to comprehend things, how to
Sure.
rationalize things. That is what education is. So otherwise, you put anybody through school, I'm sure you're going to get out with great grades and things of that sort, but in practical life, they'll be zero.
Yeah, that is, the quality is more important over education.
What is important is the application of what you teach him. And application is his ability to think, to rationalize, to come to conclusions, and not just about rattle out definitions the way they give in the book.
Exactly. So as you provide teacher training, staff worker training, like every institute needs to be trained. So you provide and you develop the entire staff training teachers of SST Public School. So what will be your comments about the training of staff, training of teachers, workers, according to you?
I think conceptually speaking, training is an ongoing activity. There's no end to training. The way they say that you learn from the cradle to the grave. So at whatever stage you are in, there is certain amount of learning that has to go on. And but when you become a teacher, you got to learn a whole lot more things than just about your subject, because now you're dealing with dynamic human beings. You've got to know a lot about interpersonal relationship. You've got to know a lot about handling youngsters, especially in a boarding house like ours, where you got a youth who actually growing up. So you got puberty issues also amongst boys at the same time. So all this put together, the teacher has to be trained in a whole lot of things other than just about handling a class and delivering a couple of lectures.
Exactly, that is more important thing. So, sir, as you have led SST for 11 years, according to you, what are those factors that shouldn't be part of a staff environment in your school?
I think staff environment, essentially speaking, you ought not have to any distraction of the sort which is going to prevent the students to accrue maximum benefit out of the teachers as such, whether it is the subject, whether it's the character building, whether it's grooming, whatever the case may be. So the moment you have that kind of a side attraction for the teachers, thereby implying that when you go outside other schools, there's hardly any relationship between the students and teachers because the boy goes to school in the morning and goes to tuition in the evening, which is not the case in our school. And at the same time, if you got to prevent your teachers from going ahead with moonlighting, so you might as well have a good look at the pay scale and see to it that you give just about adequate facilities, that they don't run out of money and then now they've got to spend a lot of time in the evening moonlighting and then the guy doesn't deliver in the classroom. So basically, the way you go by today's time, it is the financial interest that has to be safeguarded to make sure that you get the maximum of the teacher.
Yes,
But
sir.
then, of course, you've got to stay within the limits of the social institution also. So it's a
Exactly.
two-way traffic. The teachers must understand the restriction on this side, and this side must understand the demands of this side and draw something in between and live happily ever after.
Yeah, exactly. We all have to go to according to our limits.
Right.
So we are stepping to our next question. So, sir, as the discipline matters to every institute, educational institute, otherwise company, firms. So आपने discipline को और अपनी जो safety guides हैं उसको बहुत ही maintain किया. जो इसकी कंसिस्टेंसी होती है वो ज्यादा मैटर करती है. इस स्कूल को बहुत ज्यादा वक्त हो गया तो आपने इस डिसिप्लिन को बहुत सारा कायम रखा है तो इस पर आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
I think discipline is one facet which, as a matter of fact, it is, practically speaking, it can't be really enforced that way. Most often than not, it is done by example. So you can't be violating a thing yourself and imposing on others because then even if they don't have the guts to talk to you on your face, they won't talk behind you. So what is required is while you give them all the pep talk, give them all the lectures, give them all the examples. One example that is actually going to mess up everything is if you put up a bad example yourself. So set a good example for the students, then tell them whatever you want to tell them, and they will follow. If not all, most of the things they'll follow. And dictates or discipline are of the sort that it is a two-way traffic. You just can't make them do a thing which you don't do yourself.
जी.
The way they say what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So do it that way.
So, sir, what are the biggest lacking you have found in schooling system of Pakistan?
I think the only lack in school system of Pakistan is that we are doing everything but teaching them, giving them ability how to think. And whatever little some places are doing, unfortunately, they're messing up the whole thing by teaching the student what to think and not how to think.
जी.
So once you start doing that, so then you'll have all this crowd, Zindabad, Murdabad outside, they won't know what the hell they're doing out there.
And every other institute always prioritize their quantity over quality. I think the institute must be look towards the quality of education.
So your problem is the education is commercialized.
जी.
It's a money-making activity now.
जी.
So as long as you're running after money, then you forget about education. It's just about giving them certificates and making a lot of money. So there has to be a balance between the financial part, that is, say, the owners of schools have got to wake up to it, and likewise the parents have got to see to it that they also hold the owners accountable for the value of the money that they are paying on the other side. So it is a fairly tightrope walking for both sides. Unless they both wake up the situation, you'll have the same thing that you'll turn out a couple of million enter-pass youngsters who will have nothing to do, look for a job, don't find a job, and then they become a burden to the society.
Okay, so we are stepping to our next question. So, sir, according to you, what are the myths of today's generation as they are caring about their career, social life, social activities, and they are more worried about their future?
I think the biggest problem youth today has is because of its exposure to whatever media is available. They have a very, very short attention span.
जी.
And for an education institution, any education institution to engage those boys, we have to actually make a quantum change in the way we teach if we want to make sure that we get a message across. And that is, you've got to keep the interest alive, and for that purpose, the way I guess most of the institutions must be doing, it has to be activity-based thinking because that's where you involve them and get over with that one big impediment of short attention span because once the boy physically gets involved, that attention span problem is more or less addressed. But if you get down to the same way that we were taught 60, 70 years ago, I guess you're not going to reach anywhere.
So, sir, may you tell us that how do you compare SST public school with other schooling system? Is there any significant difference among all these?
I think it just might not be very fair to make a very hard comment on that. But primary differences are of the sort that we have a slightly different focus in the sense that here we now, to get over the problem of attention span, working towards introducing AI in the classrooms to see to it that the children, rather boys, the learners, are engaged in a manner that is more acceptable to them, rather than thrusting a system on them that they're not too glad about. Obviously, at the end of the day, you've got problems. And other schools appear to be catching up, but at the start of those space because probably decision making is their problem. Here, because of the reasonable degree of freedom to make decisions at the level of the principal.